Story time about how I snuck out of the house and got caught by my crazy psycho mother. Warning you guys, but here we go. At the time, I was 19 and I just got done with my first year at a university. And while I was at school, I met this cute boy, which we're going to call Kendrick. And that whole year, we were talking. So summertime rolls around and I go back to live with my parents. And when it came to my parents, they were very strict about me talking to boys, especially my mom. And I know I was 19, but my mom did not allow me to go out if she didn't know where I was at. So this one day, Kendrick is like, oh, we should go out one night. And I went and told my mom that I was going to the mall with my friends. But as the time got later, it was like too late. And my mom started blowing up my phone. And usually when she does that, I'm in big trouble. So I just decided not to pick up because I know I'm going to get in trouble anyway. So I might as well stay out and have fun with whatever time I had. But that was the biggest mistake. Y'all come back for part 2 because it gets bad, really bad. Part 2 of how I got caught sneaking out of the house by my crazy psycho mother. So like I said earlier, I was out and she was blowing my phone up and I was not answering. Because I knew I was going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well just have fun. Well, as the night was getting later, I had to go home. And when my boyfriend Kendrick dropped me off, there was a whole bunch of cars outside of my house and police cars. When I walked into my house, I saw all of my family, uncle, aunts, cousins, police. It was a whole bunch of people in there. I had my uncles and aunt walking up to me asking what happened to me. Said they called the police because they thought I got kidnapped. At one point, I was going to lie and said I got kidnapped because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I just told everybody I was out with a friend. But when my mom saw me, it was over. It was over. I should have just went ahead and buried my grave then and there. Because I got my ass whooped in front of everybody and the cops. Story time on why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So growing up, my parents split and my sister and I would stay with my mom. During the summer, we'd go see our father. My dad was a mortician and he owned a funeral home. When he would do his work, he'd go to his basement and tell us to never go inside of it. At night, he liked his basement. I always assumed that he didn't want us going down there in fear of us seeing dead bodies. One night, me and my sister was up. We couldn't sleep, so we started playing Truth or Dare. And my little sister dared me to go inside the basement. I didn't want to be a punk, so I did the dare. And I found the key to go to the basement. Before I get down there, I, of course, expected to see bodies. But when I was walking around, I didn't see any. But what was crazy was that it sounded like there were little girls crying. If you want to know what I saw, come back for part 2. This is part 2 of why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So, like I said, I went downstairs to the basement and I didn't see any bodies. Instead, I heard whimpering and crying. So, I went back upstairs and told my sister that there was nothing down there. She said that she wanted to see, so she came to the basement with me. When we were both walking around, she said that she heard the whimpering too. My sister had saw a door and it sounded like the noise was coming from behind the door. When we opened it, we saw girls chained up. Story time on how my own best friend set me up. Trigger warning, sexual assault. So when I was 13, 14 in the 8th grade, I met this girl, which we're going to call Aubrey. Throughout that year, we became really close friends. And we even went to each other's houses just about every day. And at that time, I was a virgin. I was very insecure and I didn't know my worth. And definitely attracted to the wrong boys. And that's how me and Aubrey related. We bonded over trauma, which can be toxic. But anyways, one day we met these boys. At that time, I didn't know who these boys were. And Aubrey pretended not to know them either, but I had no idea. They had to be like 17, 18, but I actually really don't know because they probably lied about their age anyway. So we started hanging around these boys, which we're going to call Stick and George. And at that time, I really liked George. Throughout our weeks of hanging out, they asked if I ever smoked Mary Jane. And I said no because I've never smoked. Push come to shove, I get peer pressured into doing it. And I think it was laced. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 of how my own best friend set me up. Trigger warning, sexual assault. So like I said earlier, I got peer pressured into smoking Mary Jane. And I think it was laced. Throughout that time of being intoxicated, I didn't know what was really going on. And remember the guy I told you guys about, George? Well, he had his way with me and my friend. Aubrey knew about it but didn't say anything. I didn't realize the severity of the situation and definitely didn't agree to anything that happened. As time went on, I started to gain my memory back on what was actually going on and started to understand, and I decided to tell my family. But nothing happened. It was almost like the person who did it to me got a slap on the wrist for what he did. This is why you should never have two best friends, but instead, one friend. Be careful of being the third wheel. When I was in high school, I had two best friends, Naomi and Cassandra. One Saturday night, we went to a party. When we went back home, we didn't have rides back home. Also, by the way, when we were in the party, Cassandra met this guy. When we stood outside the party looking for a way to get home, the guy Cassandra had talked to earlier had pulled up in his car. And he asked her if she needed a ride. She, of course, asked if he could take me and Naomi home. He said yes, but he only had room for one more person, and he told her to choose. And she chose Naomi. And in that moment, I really realized who were really the best friends. I asked him to please not leave me there alone, so Cassandra asked the guy if he could come back for me and pick me up. And being the good guy that he was, he said yes. But when they left, he never came back for me. The three best friend trio. Last year, I went on a girls' trip with my friends. It was fun, but towards the end, we had to pack up and leave. So while all the girls were packing up, me and one of my other friends went downstairs to the front desk to give the key card. When we went down there, the lobby was packed with a bunch of girls, and I'm guessing it was for a ladies' retreat. So the line was extremely long, and there was this really pretty lady that skipped the whole line, but no one noticed. So I assumed that she skipped because she was with the other girls in the retreat. She got her key card and got her room. Fast forward, after we give up our key cards to the front desk, we went back to our rooms to pack. 15 minutes later, we get a loud knock on the door, and it's the police. I opened the door, and he asked me and my friends, have we seen this girl anywhere? And it was a girl with a popsicle stick, and immediately I said no. One of my roommates said, oh, she's really pretty. And then I said, wait a minute, that was the same girl that had skipped the line. The police told us to stay in our room until further notice because that same girl went to her husband's hotel. She cut off his pee-pee, then pushed his mistress over the balcony. And now she's running through the hotel. Story time on why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. So back in 2015, I went to a university, which I'm not going to say the name of because I don't want them to know that I'm talking about them. And I majored in nursing, and usually when you major in that type of field, you usually get a lot of like science classes. So my first year, I took chemistry, which all the students have to do for their first year. It was a requirement. And my science teacher, we're going to call him Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson was like in his 40s, middle age. He had a wife and two sons. I know this because he plastered them all over the damn desk. His class was hard, but he was a really nice teacher. And whenever I needed any help, I could email him. I could come to his classroom after school hours. This went on for the whole year. So one day, I leave his class really late. He offers me a ride back home to my apartment. And of course, I said yes. This is when it gets sus. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 of why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. So, like I said earlier, I left his class late. It was really dark, and he asked if I needed a ride home to my apartment. And, of course, I said yes, because I thought it might be safer for me to get a ride from him than for me to be walking late in the dark at night. So, I give him directions on where to go. He'd ask me questions about things outside of school, and I thought it was nice because it seemed like he genuinely cared. Halfway there, he tells me that he's hungry, and if I minded if he parked to the side so he could order food for his house. He ordered his food and then just sat there. And I was like, so are we going to go? Then literally out of nowhere, this man starts bawling. I felt awkward, but I asked him what was wrong. He starts talking about his family and his wife and divorce. Thought it was weird, but I tried to console him. Then he looks at me, starts rubbing my knees, and says, this is why I adore you. It gets crazier. I'm running out of time. This is part 3 of why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. If you didn't watch part 1 and part 2, go ahead and watch it because I'm about to just go straight in. So he grabs my face and literally tries to kiss me. I was like, what the heck are you doing? He was like, come on now, I know why you came. In my head, I'm like, And he's like, look, just do me this one favor and I give you an A in my class. And I was like, nope, I'm leaving. And he yanks me back closer to him. And guys, I don't know what it is, but I got this like body trigger. Like the moment someone touches me, I'm throwing hands. And I'm messing up Mr. Jackson so bad that he had to hop out of his car. And at that moment, I just saw red. When he got out, I closed and locked his doors. He was yelling at me to get out. By the way, guys, I cannot drive, but that day I just decided to drive. And I swerved, almost crashing the car, trying to run over him. He runs off and runs into the bushes somewhere. From there, I hopped out and ran home. Story time on how I got pregnant by a married man. So we've been friends since elementary school. We were always very close all throughout middle school and high school. So in high school, he got this girl pregnant and ended up getting married to her. The girl didn't like me because she always thought we were messing around, but we never did. So he's been married to her for 5 years with 3 kids, but he's always come to me and complained about how she forced him to get married and he didn't want to get married. He actually didn't really want to be with her and wanted to get a divorce, but she wouldn't sign the divorce papers. But long story short, we had to stop hanging out because of her, and I didn't see him for about 3 years. But until last year of October, we started hanging out again, and it was innocent at first, but then I'm running out of time. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 2. This is part 2 of how I got pregnant by a married man. So, like I said earlier, last year of October, we started hanging out again, and it was innocent at first. But then he told me that he was in love with me and that we should have been the one to actually get married. He started sending flowers to my job, and he even asked me to go off with him out of state for a funeral. So we went to the funeral, and we ended up hooking up the first night we stayed. It was only supposed to be a one-time thing, but we kept doing it from November of last year until now. So about a week ago, I found out that I was pregnant, and when I told him, he wanted me to get an abortion. So I asked him why, and he was like, oh, because he has so much to lose. But come to find out, he was never going to get a divorce. He was just telling me that. So now I'm pregnant, and he doesn't want his wife to find out. And he wants me to get an abortion. Please comment down below some advice. Story time on how my whole school caught lice. We even had to take a week break from school. Okay, so this happened in the middle of my freshman year of high school. So there were these 3 girls, which we're going to call them Kayla, Rachel, and Maddie, and they were the first ones to have lice. Reason being because they were a clique and they hung around each other a lot. But rumors said that Kayla was the first one to have it because she had a dog that had it. Anyways, Maddie was a part of the cheerleading team and ended up giving it to the entire cheerleading squad. Rachel had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend ended up giving it to his entire basketball team. And from there, it kept on spreading. Teachers would make awareness to the point teachers caught it, and even the principal caught it, which made the principal had to close the school. But to this day, Kayla denies even having lice, even though her best friends Rachel and Maddie said that she gave it to them. Story time about the most embarrassing sex experience I had in my life. So that night we were on a date and I got my hair, nails, and makeup done. And my hairstylist had me try on this glueless lace wig. It was so cute. Fast forward, after we went out to eat, we went to his place. And things got a little busy. It was very heat of the moment. And I turned over because he about to beat it up. And Bull literally starts pulling on my hair. And instead of telling him not to pull on my hair, instead I just decided to hold on to my wig. And you know what happens? He pulls off my wig. And I was so embarrassed. But then he put the wig on his head. And he kept going. Story time on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with his brother. So my mom and dad were practically married. It was just never on papers. So on this specific day, my dad went to work and I went to school. My dad is a lawyer and my mom is a teacher. So me and my dad left, and my mom said that she would be leaving in like 5 minutes because she had called the day off. She said that she was going to check on a few things, so we thought that really nothing of it. So school goes by, and I come home, and I see my mom's car in the driveway, but not my dad's. And I see another car in the driveway. I thought it may have just been one of her friends because I have never met my uncle. So I walked in, and I immediately heard, loading. So I'm thinking, ew, my mom and dad are doing it again. But then again, I remember my dad's car wasn't in the driveway. So I walked upstairs quietly and peeked, and it was my mom and uncle. If y'all want a part 2, let me know down below in the comments. Story time on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with his brother. So like I said earlier, I took a peek, and It was my mom and my uncle doing the thing. So I decided to record the noises and close the door. Then I ran outside and I called my dad. And my dad was quick. He came within 10 minutes. When he comes in, I tell him to be quiet. When we go upstairs, we don't hear any more noises. When we look inside of the bedroom, they're just sitting on the bed. So, like I said before, I have never met my uncle, so my dad walked in. He immediately hugged the man, and I was so confused. And I found out that was my uncle. My uncle was like, "Nice to meet you," and I'm immediately disgusted and I roll my eyes. So, in front of my mom and my uncle, I pulled out my phone and started playing the video recording of them doing the thing. And my dad immediately starts swinging on my uncle. There's more to the story, but it's just too much to go on with. Story time on how I got pregnant at 12 years old. And the guy who I was talking to at the time was 18, but he told me he was 15. Anyways, my child's father, which we're going to call Kareem, I met at a summer party, which, by the way, I wasn't supposed to go to, but I sneaked out with my friends. Me and Kareem met at the party. He asked for my number, but I gave him my Instagram instead because at the time I didn't even have a phone. I had an iPad mini that I would use at home. So I text him on there just about every night. He always talked about how I was the only girl he wanted, and my naive 12-year-old self believed everything he was telling me. Maybe 2 weeks later, he asked me if I was a virgin, and I didn't want him to think I was weird, so I said no, even though I was. And this is when everything starts to go wrong. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy I was talking to at the time was 18. So, like I said earlier, he asked me if I was a virgin, and I said no, even though I was, because I didn't want to look like a weirdo. Kareem starts talking about how we should go on a little movie date and that he'd buy me popcorn and whatever I wanted from the movie theater. So Friday night comes around, I sneak out of the house and I met with Kareem down the street. He pulls me close and said that he wanted to blindfold me because he had a little surprise. I was nervous, but I trusted him, so I allowed him to blindfold me, by the way, which was the biggest mistake ever. So he grabs my hand and holds my bag. And all of a sudden, I hear people, and I get picked up, and I feel multiple people feeling on me. This is when the night takes a turn. I'm running out of time. Please come back for part 3. This is part 3 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy who I was talking to at the time was 18. So Kareem blindfolds me for a surprise, and I get picked up. And it felt like there were multiple people picking me up. I screamed and told him to get off of me, and I tried to take my blindfold off, but Kareem yells out, "No, not yet." And I started to get a little confused and scared, and this went on for like a good minute, and I was just struggling to basically get away. Then I hear doors open, and I'm screaming, and Kareem tells me to calm down. When I finally get put down, I end up smacking someone in the face, just so they could let go of me. When I snatched my blindfold off to see where I was in someone's room. This is when it gets really manipulative. I'll be back soon as possible for part 4. This is part 4 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy I was talking to at the time was 18. So I take off my blindfold and I'm in someone's room. I turn around and it's Kareem. I asked him what's going on and why am I there. Kareem looks at me and tells me that he brought me there for a surprise. When I look around, there's candles lit in the room, and I asked him, I thought we were going to the movies, and he tells me the movies was closed down. By the way, which it was not, now thinking he was probably too broke to even take me to the movies. Anyways, Kareem tells me that I was being extra when I got picked up. He said he got his little brothers to transport me to his room. Thinking now it was stupid, but at the time I thought it was cute. Kareem says that he decorated the whole room to look like a movie theater, and that was a lie because his room looked like he scooped all his trash underneath his bed. And he lit up 2 candles. So much for the movies. But now that we're in his room, things get a little hot. Y'all let me know if I should make a part 5. Story time on Tinder date from hell. So recently, I got dumped by my boyfriend. I went over to my friend's house because I was feeling down, and she convinced me to get a Tinder. So I immediately matched with this guy, and what drew me to swipe right was because he looked like my celebrity crush. Anyways, we started talking and we exchanged phone numbers. Everything was good. I Snapchatted him, so he knew I was real. Over time, he would get upset when I would post my guy friends on my Snap. And he say things in Spanish like, "you're mine." And at the time, I thought it was cute, not realizing it was a obsessive thing. We talked just about every day until one day I got together with my friends and we went out. And remember how I told you guys that he didn't really like my friends? Well, he randomly calls me at 2 a.m. crying and claiming that he got stabbed. If you want to know what happened after that, come back for part 2. Part 2 of Tinder Date from Hell. So, like I said earlier, I went out with my friends and he randomly calls me at 2 a.m. claiming that he got stabbed. And I, of course, thought that was crazy. I felt bad for him and wanted to be there, but I would never see the wound. A couple days later, he had his friends add me on Snapchat, and one of his friend's girlfriends told me to get away from him and that he was obsessed with me. And all he would talk about was me. And he ain't never get stabbed. When I found that out, I wanted to leave the whole relationship alone, and he went off on me. Like, he went psycho crazy and told me that he was going to off himself if I ever decided to leave. And mind you guys, I barely even know this man. It gets even crazier. Come back for part 3. Part 3 of Tinder Date from Hell. So after I found out that he tried to fake getting stabbed, I told him I was ready to leave the whole relationship, and he threatened to off himself if I decided to go. After that, I couldn't deal with him anymore, so I ignored him, and he would blow up my phone. When I got tired of his craziness, I blocked his number and blocked him from all my social medias. He began starting to make fake accounts, adding me. A couple weeks later, I saw him at a club one night, and he saw me. He started walking my way, and I didn't want to be rude, so I allowed him to talk to me, and I kind of felt bad for kind of ghosting him, so I just entertained to be nice and hoped that all the stuff that he did in the past was just a phase. And he was really nice, and he actually bought me a drink. And I really thought nothing of it until I started to feel dizzy right after drinking the drink, and I passed out. It gets worse after this. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 4. Here's another toxic best friend story time. And ladies, you're going to want to hear this one. So, one day in school, I met this boy, which we're going to call Tyrone. We became friends, like really, really close friends. And over time, he asked me to be his girlfriend. And of course, I said yes. Because, I already had a secret crush on him already. And, everything was cute for a while, until he started to act very distant. And I was very confused. He wouldn't give me hugs, kisses, and he wouldn't spend no time to really see me. Until randomly, his girl best friend had told me that he was cheating on me. She sent me message screenshots, but I didn't know they were fake at the time. And seeing that, I was like, no, I'm done, and I broke up with him. For a whole year, I didn't speak to him. And weirdly, he started dating his best friend. But then we started to talk again, but just as friends. Ended up finding out that he didn't cheat on me. And his now girlfriend broke us up. Story time on how I found out the FBI was spying on me for 7 months. At the time this was going on, I was a junior in high school. And in the mornings, I would walk to school because my school was only like a couple blocks down. But I always noticed there was like a gray minivan always going the same direction as me. So I always assumed that it was probably another kid from my school. And his or her parents was driving them to school. And one day I left home early because I wanted to get food from the store. So I went to a corner store, and when I came out, that same minivan was parked outside of the store. And then I was like, okay. Thought that was weird, but I walked back to school. But I didn't go the normal way that I usually go. I took a different shortcut that day because I didn't want to be late for school. And halfway there, that same minivan pops up again. And it went the opposite direction of me because it was a one-way street. By the time I got to school, the minivan was parked on the side of my school. I, of course, ran inside the building, and halfway through class, I forgot about the whole situation. Running out of time, I'll post part 2 right after this. Part 2 on how I found out the FBI was watching me for 7 months straight. For the first 3 to 4 months, a minivan was watching me, and when I started to catch on, they stopped showing up. But what got weird is when I got to school, every day my friends would just ask me weird questions about what I was doing, where I was going. And it was weird because I felt like I was being interrogated. After a couple months passed down, still being questioned, and I get called down to the principal's office. And I'm scared because I'm like, am I in trouble? What did I do? When I walk in, there's detectives sitting down. They then sat me down, started asking me questions. They laid out a bunch of pictures of me. And this is kind of how I found out they was watching me for so long. They asked me if my name was my real name, am I the age of my birth certificate, asked me if I was an immigrant, and I was so confused. And come to find out, they thought I was a mass murderer. As in, like, they thought that I was the guy that was abducting women. When I told them this wasn't me, I didn't do this stuff, man. They did some background checks. They got my family involved. My parents even wanted to sue because they didn't even know this was going on. Because at the time I was a minor and I was getting questioned.